we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not. Hi there, and welcome to Better Than Not, the podcast that aims to capture shifting perspectives and thought-provoking ideas in conversation, based loosely on my Substack series, A Changing Frame of Reference, which you can read on the Substack app, and I hope you will, as I might give you some insight into what this podcast is all about. I'm your host, Doug Gardam, and today I welcome back Scott Thompson. Scott, how are you, Scott?
I am doing very well. How are you, Douglas? Can you hear me? Am I coming through?
You
Testing,
are
1, 2, 3.
You're coming through loud and clear, and you can hear me, I hope.
I can hear you and see you. You look fabulous as always. So how many people have been on twice? I know Scott Stewart has, but I think he's paying you. Isn't he paying you?
Yes, he's paying me extravagantly. It's I was going to say I probably had 4 to 6 people on a second time, but this has happened very quickly. And part of the reason why this is coming quickly, if you listen to the last episode that I had with Scott, he is a political commentator after his years in the radio. And I think we're in a particularly important election here in Canada. I don't usually go down the political vein in this podcast, but I think it's important. And to the title of the podcast, Better Than Not, this is one of those elections that I think it's better to get out there and vote than not to. And I think you're going to hear that from Scott today. So Scott, when we get into this, what got you into the political scene to the extent that you are today?
Getting into talk radio 20 years ago. And, once you jump on the merry-go-round, it's pretty tough to get off. I want to comment that this past weekend was advanced polling. And I've started to vote in advance, I think, for the last 3 elections, just simply because of the convenience of it all.
Yes.
And I don't want to, have to go after work at whatever time when everybody else is lining up. So I've been doing it for a few elections now. And my daughter votes as well. My son, he's a couple of months short and is very angry about that, I might add, because, he wants his own ex. But so anyway, we pack up the family and go off to vote, which we've done since Alicia was able to vote a few years ago. And
that's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's neat. And we went on Friday morning, or like before noon. So the polls literally just opened at 9. And I'm thinking Easter weekend, you'll be able to breeze in, breeze out. And we stood in line for 25 minutes at 12 noon. And the worker told us that at 9 o'clock, there was a 45-minute wait. We had heard, and you heard rumors of that all day. And what ended up happening was the first day of advanced polling, we set a record with over 2 million people voting in the first day of an advanced poll on an Easter long weekend. So historically, what that means is people want change. That's historically what it means. Now we have an anomaly election here with change plus Trump. And we also have to add that the amount of people that have voted in advanced polls has been steadily increasing. I think it's up to about a third of people who vote now. So that's great to see. More options, more time, and more people vote. But either way you slice and dice this, to see 2 million people vote on the first day, Doug, what that says to me is people have been pent up inside their home for at least 2 years, waiting for Justin Trudeau to walk out the door. And then when he did, he set off this whole stage of events that took us forever to get to here. Yes. And once you open up the barn door, the freaking horses are out. They're gone. And that's what happened. And we'll see what happens. Again, historically, it means change. However, there is the Trump factor here. But man, I think it's certainly saying something. You tell people they want, people say they want change and you don't give them change. You make them wait a couple of years for that and go through this big pageant that we had. They're pissed. And, we'll see how that all ends in come the 28th.
Well, this is part of what I wanted to ask you about is like, we did have just this recent massive election south of the border. And leading up to that, we saw it as being a close race. Like it was like, what's going on here? Like, and I can remember even thinking of like how quickly this opponent to the president today had just like literally overnight become someone that's going to be worthy to be president of the United States. And then we get to election day, election night, and it was anything but an even race, Scott.
No,
Like it
no.
was a landslide, like
Yeah,
as things go. So my question is too, I saw your post on Facebook, and I'm kind of going, okay, this is kind of cool because you're there, boots on the ground. This isn't something we read on X or on social media. You're there. We've seen this across, I'll say, in various channels of social media, people repeating that. You've just given us a number of 2 million people. That's crazy to
yeah.
me when you're thinking we're 40 million people all told. And what like when you look at those two things like, where are we supposed to be looking for information if the United States and possibly even us have a similar thing that what we're being told is not necessarily accurate?
You know, yes, the information is clouded because we have so many sources now. But
Right.
Jesus, can we at least, go through a few of them? Can we at least look under a couple of different pages instead of just
Yes.
seeing the freaking 10-second TikTok that comes from China? Like, my goodness.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I'm in the media. I've been in the media for 40 years. I'm very disappointed in the media right now because of
Okay.
the reasons everybody's saying. I mean, I just don't think it's being fair. I'm not sure if it's bias or if it's just lack of supervision because the media industry, certainly the traditional media, has just been gutted in the last
Yes.
little while. So there just aren't the eyes to look over what the kids or whoever is putting out the door before it gets there. And
Sure.
we've seen many examples of that. So, you can blame the messenger, but are you even listening to what the messenger is saying or looking to the other messenger or the one next to him or her or him or her? And, getting back to the US election,
Yes.
I sat there with my son and Dad, they keep saying it's close. It's not even close. And, he's looking at this from a 17-year-old's perspective, watching another system, how they elect their president or their leaders. And I'm trying to explain it to him, but they keep saying it's close. Look at those numbers, Dad. It's not even close, and it never was.
Right.
And then again, I think I talked about this on the Lads podcast. I remember seeing, and I saw something similar just about a week or so ago because all the books are coming out about the U.S. election now,
Sure.
and there was like one conservative CNN pundit on the panel of a dozen. And I remember him saying election night, we got this wrong. We've been telling everybody, blah, 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 blah. And the exact opposite happened. How did that happen? I remember watching Jimmy Kimmel joking that Donald Trump was saying, hey, look at how many men in the black community I have. And people, he's making jokes out of it. And then after the election's over, it's like, holy geez, look at this. Where was that? So my fear is that the exact same thing is going to happen here, because what that proves to me is that there is bias, or somebody's got a bigger mouth than someone else does.
Right.
And so they're sucking all the oxygen out of the room. And to me, the liberals have continuously, first of all, I voted for all three at one point or other. So the liberals keep saying communication. They fire the communication staff. They fire the cabinet. They Communication is about me conveying my thoughts, my ideas to you so you understand them. Communication is not me trying to convince you that I'm right and you're wrong. That's called brainwashing. Right. And I remember Minister Catherine McKenna, Environment Minister, years ago saying, if you just keep repeating the same things over and over again, louder and louder, the people will believe you. And that's exactly what the liberals do. And when they get to a point where they can't convey the message, they come up with a wedge issue to go, look, something shiny over here that makes you completely ignore what the reality is. We saw it in the last election with mandatory vaccination. Canadians were 70% on their way to getting their first mandatory or their first vaccination. And the only reason they didn't get more is because they couldn't get any, because we had to stand in line. We were told, you need this to survive, but sorry, we don't make it. You can't have any, you'll have to wait. So the reason even more people weren't getting vaccinated more quickly, is because we were waiting for our age groups to be called. That was the wedge issue. They forced O'Toole to take the other position. Boom, there you go. Now we've got 10 years of the lost Liberal decade. And I'm sorry, I've had Bank of Canada people saying innovation, productivity, investment, all down. If this, in case of emergency, break glass, we would have broken this glass 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And yet here we are. And instead of housing, healthcare, what all those issues that everybody's talking about, it's like, forget that. We got a boogeyman over here, and he's going to eat us all alive unless we save you. Come on. The best way to combat Trump is a strong Canada with productivity, innovation and investment, which has been driven out of this country for the last 10 years. First generation where the kids cannot even buy a home. Yeah. What happened to the minister of the middle class? Come on.
Well, these are some of the points, Scott, to me that, like, and I'm not on the TV all the time listening to this, right? So, like, that's part of the thing, like, why I think it's interesting having you here, is because what you just said, I kind of feel is going on. I don't hear healthcare. I don't hear housing. I don't hear food and energy. Like, it's really weird to me that, like, we're in the throes of this and those aren't the issues being discussed. Like, it's a pretty big deal. Like, I think numbers are like 2 million people in Ontario don't have a family doctor. 1 million people in BC don't have a family doctor. Like, this is Canada, Scott.
I know.
Like, what? Like, why aren't we hearing anything about that kind of thing? You have to wait how long for an MRI or some kind of procedure today? Like,
when did we become so weak? When did we become so cowardice? Like, seriously, every issue you've just mentioned, or I did previously, that's all covered up because Donald Trump's going to make us the 51st state. Come on, people, snap out of it. I mean, it's unbelievable. Whenever the liberals have backed themselves into a corner, which they've done for the last 10 years, they bring up some sort of fear-mongering wedge issue, which is usually, if you don't put us in power again, the problems that we have created will never be solved. And it's like, my God, build, baby, build. We haven't built anything in 10 damn years. We're too busy saving the world, saving everybody else. The job of government is to collect your taxes and provide services for you, and growth and opportunity. We don't want to hand out. We want to hand up. And again, for Carney and everybody else to sit there and say, we're the only ones that can handle Trump. Who? A banker? Trump's been eating and spitting out bankers for decades. Like, you're kidding me.
Great point. There's a point that you can take the bank. Now, something that I've been finding very bizarre too is, I mean, the tariffs are on the news every day. Up, down, all around, like wherever they are. But boots on the ground, Scott, right now here, fuel prices are the lowest they've been for months.
Again, read the art of the deal. Read the art of the deal. I'll say right now, I've never read it. Never read a damn page, but I've read an awful lot about it, and from people who have read it. And he pits two sides against each other, and may the strongest person win, whether it's members of his own family or members of his business. He uses this as a wedge issue. I'm going to come in and take 100% of everything you have. And then when you come back and you get 90, you think, oh my God, I'm saved. That's how he plays. We don't need a banker to take care of Donald Trump. We need another salesman. That's what we need. And it amazes me to no end that somehow becoming the 51st state, and let's be serious, what the hell is the chance of that? That somehow this hysterical threat hypothetical threat is somehow more important than housing, than healthcare, than our security, than all of that stuff. And yet here it is. Look, something shiny. It's Trump. My God, as I said, they should be sending Trump a bouquet of flowers for how this has turned out for the Liberals. And let me get one more thing off my chest. Have we
Please.
all forgotten how we got here? Not even 10 years ago, not even 10 years ago, just a few months ago. People, and Trudeau's popularity has been in the dumper forever. People want an election. Nope, can't have it. Nope, can't have it. Instead, he keeps pulling all these rabbits out of his hat and things out of his rear end, and we just keep mowing right along. Let's go back to the beginning and how this Trudeau deck of cards, house of cards, came crashing down. It started when Chrystia Freeland was supposed to give a budget on a Monday, and she was told on Friday that after she gives her budget, she would be replaced as finance minister and demoted. And she said, and she fell on the sword and she started the whole thing to crumble. You know who was to replace her? And don't you all remember? It was Mark Carney. Mark Carney was supposed to replace Chrystia Freeland as finance minister only a few short months ago. And she said, "You're going down." And she took him down. And the last thing Justin Trudeau is going to do, being the self-proclaimed feminist that he is let a female take his job when she's the one that pushed the first domino over. So if you're sitting there and thinking Carney's some new kind of element, and I understand why you do, because he's got banker socks and banker's hair. He doesn't look like JT. And he's pretty much taken all of their policies and done a complete 180, including on the very first day of his prime ministership, sitting there with a great big giant Sharpie like Donald Trump and signing this big piece of paper that said carbon tax gone, which it's not. It's just paused. Yeah. So, how do you sell this guy as being somebody new when he was the financial advisor of this government for years and was about to become the finance minister? What was he going to do? All of a sudden deliver that 180 budget that he is now or trying to now? Or was he going to go with Chrystia Freeland's? Chrystia Freeland's budget sucks, but we've got something better now? What was that storyline supposed to be? Nobody even remembers that Mark Carney was Trudeau's next finance minister, but Chrystia Freeland pulled the whole rug out from under him and the party tumbled, and we're living that now. We're living the final chapters of it.
Scott, I really would ask the question of how many people even know that. Like, I really do. Like,
how can you not know it? It was all over the news. It was.
Well, I was going to say you have to be paying attention to it.
I knew about it. Again, it was, how can you not?
Well, this is why it's so important to me. Like, this is why I wanted to have you on, is because those are things that we remember. Our attention span's about 20 seconds, if that long. And you said that's 2 months ago. So that's like an eon ago that happened.
Yeah.
But it's very real today. And we completely, to me, forgotten much of this. Like how this is all kind of came about. Like, part of the thing that, like, you haven't even mentioned the fact that we have an unelected prime minister. And in not only
I'm not going to spend too much. I'm not going to. Like, that is very true, but that's the system we have. And I don't have a problem with that. I really don't. I have a problem more with the public who is drinking the damn Kool-Aid and not understand and not even realizing the bad taste it's leaving in their mouth. Here's another thing. Remember when he came in the first day and he paused the carbon tax? Yes. It was too divisive. It was too divisive. I can list you an arm's length list of ministers. The world's going to end. We're going to burst into flames. And now it's gone. Well, it's paused.
Yes.
So when the gas suddenly dropped to whatever it dropped to in your area, didn't anybody ask the question, well, what were we doing that for? And did we really see any result from it?
Yeah.
And where did that money go? It is and always was simply a revenue generator for the Liberal government. That's what it is. It's a revenue generator. Mm-hmm. It's not designed. It's designed to change behavior, which, by the way, doesn't necessarily bring down our carbon emissions. You
No,
know what?
no,
I think we'd
no.
be better to blow them up a half a point, produce some clean Canadian liquid natural gas, and give it to our neighbors who are begging for it. And perhaps we can pay for some of what Justin Trudeau has gotten us into. But there's never been a business case for Canadian liquid natural gas, said Justin Trudeau and Mark Carney. And
Yeah.
I hope the media keeps pressing him, because the stuff about building an energy corridor and more pipelines is nothing but bullshit. And all you have to do is look at the Trans Mountain Pipeline out in your neck of the woods to
Yeah,
see
that's right.
that. You
Yeah.
know, Kinder Morgan was supposed to buy the damn thing, but then they set up so many freaking restrictions they can't do it. They say, we can't afford this, we're out. And then the government takes what was supposed to be a $5 billion project, turns it into a $30 billion project. You're
And
welcome, Canada. Look what we did for you. Just like they stood up and said, hey, look what we did. We paused the carbon tax. It's your tax. And what about, but now you're not getting any rebate checks? Like, where the hell is that mentality?
well, I mean,
So again, it amazes me. It amazes me that they keep going to this trough. They keep doing the same thing with these wedge issues. But what even amazes me more is the public falls for it. And I get it. We're busy. We're trying to put a roof over our head. We're trying to raise our kids and food on the table, all that. I get it. But boy, we got to do a little bit more work, because there's a lot of wool being pulled over faces right now. And, you know, it'll be interesting to see after the election if, like the United States, we just got it all wrong, or if, in fact, the silent majority has finally spoken and let's move on.
well, this is why I come back to, like, get out, like you've already kind of said, like we're already seeing unprecedented numbers in early voting. So, like, get out there. It's, in this case, it's better than not to get out there and vote. Like, get your vote in. Like, get counted if you're hearing what Scott's saying in many ways. So another question I have, and again, this gets to our US border, because it's really hard not to. We've got this whole Department of government efficiency. So whether you like Musk, whether you like what they're doing, and all that kind of stuff, there are things that we're hearing that they're actually pulling out, like, a lot of money, like that's going to wrong places. Why have we not heard anything like that maybe we should be doing in Canada too? Or is it not, it's not important?
You know, I think when we're not paying attention, shit like that happens. I think when we've got a government who's busier managing people's lives than they are
Right.
managing the economy,
Yes. Yes.
you know, like, how did we get to where we are? I keep going back to that.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's why Trump finds us weak, woke, and vulnerable. You know, and like, let's go back to the border thing with the fentanyl. You know, he's going, I want the fentanyl. The fentanyl's coming across and killing the Americans. And everybody's arguing over, it's only 0.0%. It's only this. It's only that. I'm sorry. Are you saying that our borders are very, very strong? Are you saying that we're stronger with our border than the U.S. is with theirs? Are you saying that summit that was a few months ago to stop cars from going in containers and across, you know, the sea?
Yes.
Like,
Yes.
are you kidding me? His point is, tighten up your goddamn border,
Right.
whatever it is. And then they get, oh, the fentanyl, his facts aren't even, his facts aren't. Who gives a damn what he's saying? Who gives a damn? The point is, the border's weak. In his first term, when he starts, and I'm not a fan. He's,
Yep.
he's,
I get it. Get it.
I don't need that. But in his first term, when he's, being Trump, Trudeau stands up and goes, everybody's welcome here. And he cuts a hole in the fence at the end of Roxham Road. And here's another thing. It was Joe Biden in the last few weeks of his term that came up to Trudeau and said, you got to close that freaking hole. And finally it was done.
Oh, man.
Why was it even there? How does that happen? My mother was an immigrant. She came here with her siblings with the clothes on her back in a little suitcase. And she raised us, and look what we have. And there's people getting in illegally. Immigrants don't like that. And we're all immigrants of some sort. So it's just, again, he speaks out of both sides of his mouth. And I'm sorry. He's not that smart, and he never was. So again, the whole immigration issue, whether it's cars, whether it's guns, over 80% of the guns that commit crimes in Canada are going across the border. That's because the border's too loose, whether it's fentanyl, cars, people, or handguns or assault weapons. The point is, it's not the 4.0, but whatever. Who cares what numbers Donald's flipping up? His point is right, that the border was too porous. And guess what? It's tightened up more since Donald Trump has been president than it ever has under Trudeau. So, but here, we don't like that guy, so he's wrong. Oh, is anything that he's saying right? Because maybe we should clean up our own house before we start pointing fingers at everybody else. Yes. And I mean, you can use the same thing with security. Remember the Pentagon leaks of a couple of years ago? Yeah. Trudeau was on tape saying, we're never going to get our 2%. That's never going to happen. And then the leak, it came out. And now all of a sudden, we're talking about going above 2%. Why? Because of Carney? Because of the Liberals are all of a sudden tough on crime and strong on security and the military? No, it's because Donald Trump's banging on the door. So it's like, my God, these people have left us vulnerable for the last decade in every one of those categories that we've just discussed.
Yes.
And now they're going to fix it all. They create the crisis and then save the day with the solution, which, by the way, is a lot of what Donald Trump does. So, my God, it's arrogance beyond belief. So on either side of the political spectrum.
It is. I mean, it's that absolute power corrupts absolutely, right? It's the same thing. But I go back now. This is a shift. Just so to give an example, but Steve Lukert, there, a guitarist for the Toto, an old band. I know this is a bit of switch, but the point is, he said,
hold the line.
Hold the line. And hold the line. Hold the line here on this thought. It's like, he said, we hired a manager. And suddenly our manager was solving all kinds of problems that we'd never had before. So we fired him. And we never had those problems again.
It's making yourself useful at others' expense.
To me, I love the example because there's days that I kind of think that, well, you made it a problem. And now you're solving the problem that you made that wasn't really a problem in the first place.
And like when Carney stood up on the debate and said, I know you want to be fighting Justin Trudeau, but Justin Trudeau's not here, and neither is the carbon tax. Well, he might as well be, because standing in front of Carney, feeding him his lines, is Justin Trudeau's former chief of staff, who got kicked out during the Wee scandal, and his last chief of staff. And then behind them, a whole pile of cabinet ministers that were in Justin Trudeau's cabinet. So the socks are gone. The little, the wink is gone. The hair's gone. But it's all the same stuff. And like, I'm sorry. What, is Justin Trudeau tied up in a room somewhere with a gag in his mouth? He must be screaming at all these 180s on the policies that he said would save the world. So, it's, and I was surprised that Carney even brought up Trudeau's name, and again, Pierre Poilievre reacted with like, well, look behind you. They're all there. They're writing the lines for you. And they are. Gerald Butts, Katie Telford, they're all involved in Carney's campaign. Yeah. This guy is not a politician. He's a banker. Yes,
absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, he's been a banker in England for how many years leading up to this?
Yeah, absolutely. Prior to being the head of the Bank of Canada.
So now you hear this little bit of feedback that says, yeah, but the guy who's going against this, so Poilievre in this case, like, how is he going to fare? He doesn't have experience in this area. Like, how do you look at that, Scott?
Nobody has experience in this area. Like, I'm sorry. Can you show me a leader of any country that's showing their brilliance here? Everybody has to succumb to the clown. It's just the way it is. Yes, and you know what? You do that as best you can. You kiss his ass. You keep him happy. You try not to ruffle his feathers. And then you go back to your job because you have no other choice. They're 10 times bigger than we are. So, like,
There you
again,
go.
it's, we Easter dinner. This was the big thing. Everybody's coming over for Easter.
Oh,
There must have been just a ton of bun fights over the course of this weekend.
oh
And,
my goodness.
even at our house, I'm
Yeah.
talking to some people, and it's like, well, I don't like Pierre Poilievre. Why? Because he's like Trump. How? Well, look at him. And it's really, really look at him, listen
Yeah.
to him. It's like, oh my God. Like, what are you doing? Picking a prime minister or someone to date your sister? Like, this is unbelievable. I mean, we used to say the same thing about Harper. Look at him. He's got the boring hair. He's got the lifelong politician, rah, 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 all that stuff.
Yeah.
What do you want? Trudeau?
Well,
So, and again, Donald Trump had zero respect for Trudeau. He has zero
yes.
respect for Canada because how woke and weak we become since like the Second World War. And he sees an opportunity there. You get up on your hind feet and you go, all right, bud, let's go. And you don't insult him. You don't do what he does to you.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
And I don't mean retaliation with tariffs. I agree with that 100%. But you don't get into a name calling game with him. You don't do, because that's what Trudeau did. Every time Trudeau was on a world stage, whether it was Boris Yeltsin or Boris Johnson or who else, he was like, bah, 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 bah. And even at the G7 in Canada, Trump's on the plane. He's watching Trudeau badmouth him on TV. Even when Trudeau was still in power, and Trump had been reelected with a big majority, he goes on TV and says how disappointed he is in Americans for not picking a female leader, which, by the way, the Liberal Party is the only party in Canada who has never had a female leader. Unless, of course, a self-proclaimed feminist. So, he insults the president instead of congratulating him. And you wonder why Trudeau's calling him a governor? Trump would love to slap this guy around. And a lot of Canadians were loving it too, because he's an arrogant man. And what he said, it would have helped and fed his ego, but that did damage to Canada. And we're experiencing that now because your ego is bigger than your diplomatic ability. So come on, people. And again, what is this? So we've got a guy who knows his numbers because he's going to get along with Trump. Trump doesn't, it's leverage. I want this. You give me that. What's in it for me?
Yes.
How can I come up with a win? So play the game. Stop being defensive and cowardice and we got to do this to Trump, got to do this to that. And they're doing that to try to win an election, to try to distract Canadians from the last 10 years of a lost Liberal decade. When he said we didn't need houses, we didn't need to develop energy, we don't need any of that because we've done so many other social things.
Yeah.
And I will commend him for his work on truth and reconciliation. But other than that, I don't see anything. I really don't. And on the first day of Truth and Reconciliation, when I'm sitting in the studio doing 12 breaks on nothing but Indigenous issues, this guy's out in BC surfing. Are you kidding me? On the very first Truth and Reconciliation Day, you couldn't just sit there and do nothing but talk to reporters and sell the cause like we all were? Come on. I'm tired of the fakeness, the phoniness. It's just, and people just buy into it. And here's the reason why. They don't like Poilievre either, but they hated Trudeau more. So it's always the best on a bad menu, right? And people think, well, I didn't like Pierre, but he put the boots to Trudeau, and we all wanted to do that. So bonus. Yeah. But now Trudeau's gone, and that's what Carney said. Trudeau's gone. The carbon tax is gone. Look, everybody loves me now. Really? Really?
Well, see, you're bringing back an important part to this whole thing, and that is remembering. You have a memory, and hopefully, what you're seeing in the advanced polling, there's many more of us.
My wife tells me over and over and over again how much crap I forget. This sticks in my head because obviously what I do or did, but I just can't believe. I can't believe. Like there was people coming over to my house on the weekend saying, yeah, but have you looked at him? He's like Trump. Like, well, what's he going to do? Like we've been having the abortion discussion. Does anybody remember Dr. Henry Morgentaler back in the 70s? We've
Yeah.
covered all of this. We've
Hmm.
been there, done that, wrote the book, been the guide for other countries trying to do the same. Why, whenever
Yeah.
the liberals get into a bind, do they fearmonger and bring back stuff from the past? Is totally irrelevant because it works for them.
Yeah.
Because people need to be coddled. They don't want to hear the truth. They want someone to look after them. And what they don't realize is they're really not looking after you. They're looking after themselves and getting reelected. And that's what
Yeah.
their job is.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, that's accurate, and that's true, and they are doing that. Well, I was going to say, it time will tell whether they're doing that effectively or not. I think that just the distraction principle is stunning here. Like, and many of the points that you've brought up, right, is like, let's go and have a word slinging with Trump. People like that. It's a distraction, but it doesn't do anything, right? Like it, other than harm you. It doesn't give you solid, so shall we say, construction or ideas to improve or make better. You're just, it's a distraction. Like let's pull us away. To me, even this whole carbon tax thing, oh, we're going to get rid of carbon. It's just a distraction.
Yeah,
Like you
yeah.
you don't have parliament. You can't change laws at this point in time. You're not like, this is why we're going through an election, so we can get started again.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree 100%, and that's the way they kicked off his time in office, his prime ministership is like right away.
Yes.
Trudeau's gone, and so is the carbon tax. All right, we're good to go. That's all right. Let's go get Trump now. Like, come on.
Yeah, it's so the other thing, this is the history part.
Forgetting, by the way, that they are the originators of Trudeau and the carbon tax, which I still find. But we need to press him more on what he's going to do instead of like a big word salad, which he comes out with, and
Right.
what's he going to do? Like, just talk to Donald Trump and bore him into a sleep. I mean, come on. It's he has
Stand
no
up
more.
and be Canadian.
Well, you know what? It's not. Hey, here's an idea. Why doesn't Canada stand up with our
Yes.
industry, our innovation, our productivity, our ingenuity? Why doesn't that stand up? We don't need a guy to stand up for us. The guy's just the mouthpiece. He's just the front person in the band. It's the band that provides the
Yes.
music.
Yes.
So at the end of the day, be Canadian, be strong, stand up for what you believe in. Let's get back to building stuff and being self-sufficient the way we're supposed to be. Like we built a railway across the damn country. We wouldn't be able to do that now. We can't do that now. Everybody's talking about the interprovincial trade barriers. Yeah,
Right.
what we need? What we need to do? We need to get rid of those international trade barriers. That's what. You know what they were, Doug? They're provincial tariffs.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So why isn't my first question was, so how did we get here? Why are they even there?
Right.
Who thought of it? Who brought it up? The associations, the unions, all of those socialist tariff people who didn't want people coming into their space and eating their sugar unless you pay into it. I don't care if you're a union plumber in Manitoba. If you're not paying dues in Ontario, you're not coming in.
There you
go. Same with booze, wine, whatever it is.
It's all there.
Premiers are saying it's easier to do a deal with Alabama than it is any other province. Why is that? And now all of a sudden, yeah, we're changing that all now. Well, you're asking for free trade with the United States, and you don't even have free trade within your own damn country. And why? Because the left put those restrictions in place.
So much we don't know, man. So much that's just not there. It's just not part of our world.
I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer. Like, come on. I'm no brainiac here. Right, this is common sense shit. It really is. Anyway.
You're bringing it to the forefront, though, Scott. That's the part that I think we're missing, right? This is not swayed by some TikTok that somebody's getting pulled over at the border with their dog barking at somebody. You're talking about like something that matters.
Yeah.
And I think many of those things we tend to miss out. I think partly because we're at an unprecedented age where everything's on our hands, right? Like it's in our pocket, and
Yeah,
we can
people
kind
are
of sit there.
busy. Yeah, there's a
Yeah, and
lot on the plate.
and often you're just. I think people are just go to social media scrolling because they're just numb,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
so the whole idea of the social media, kind of the likes, the favorites, the whole idea be there is to be outrageous, not to be accurate and right, to be outrageous.
What's the difference between a modern day influencer and an old fashioned loudmouth? What's the difference?
Nothing.
I think we're
You've
going to
got a
find out on
bigger,
the
you've got a
28th.
bigger audience.
Yeah,
You have,
it's and you know, again, I go back to that. If you keep repeating the same thing over and over again, louder and louder, people will believe what you're saying.
there you go.
And that's what we have. We don't have a plan. And I remember when Justin Trudeau was first elected, I remember thinking, he really doesn't have anything. It's more a feeling. It's a vibe. It's a
Yeah.
culture. It's not really, I'm going to do this, 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 and this. It's kind of like a big
It was
party.
it was
Because Justin
change.
is more like his mother than he
Yes.
ever has been like his father. Whether you like his dad's politics or not, he was an academic. He was a smart cookie.
Yeah. Yeah.
This guy's a butterfly. He's a free spirit. And I don't mean that in a negative, derogatory way. He's a different cat. And
Very.
again, he does not have the business or economic prowess to be driving the bus. And nor does his team, whether that's Mark Carney, Chrystia Freeland, or whoever it is, you know, Anita Anand or Sean Fraser, who had left to spend more time with their family. And then as soon as JT's out of there, oh, wait a sec, my family's fine. I'm coming back to get elected. You know what? I find it fascinating. Nobody in that party, including Mark Carney, could stand up to Justin Trudeau. Nobody could sway him on any of this. He would just wipe the cabinet clean and start again. Wipe the comms team clean and start again. Nobody, even Dominic LeBlanc, his babysitter, not even him, he could not even sway him to budge on any of these issues. Yet these people are going to negotiate with Donald Trump. You like Trump? Trudeau was gone. Carney's in, and the first day, carbon tax. Whew,
Yep.
like and then the housing and this and that and the other. He's done a 180 on the majority of Trudeau's plank policies. Where was that? Like Chrystia Freeland is the only one that had any strength to stand up to him. She fell on the sword. She's gone.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on. Come on. And here we are trying to convince the public that somehow we have change. There's no change here. You know, and again, if you can't stand up to Trudeau, how the hell are you going to stand up for Canadians and Trump?
It's a very, very good point. I mean, you're illustrating that to me in real big spotlights. The other thing that I think is really interesting, and you said this at the beginning about how he came in when they defeated the Conservatives, right? And it was kind of a time when it was change, right? It was real change. And what's really kind of interesting is how it duplicates itself, because I remember the early words about who prorogues Parliament. Harper did that, right? Towards the end. And you kind of go, well, what did we just witness here? Like, you resigned and then you did this?
Exactly. I
Like,
agree 100%.
it's one of those things that, but I mean, that's not 2 months of memory, Scott. That's 11 years of memory. Like, that's a big chunk.
Yeah. The thing I find fascinating with beyond the politicians, because politicians are politicians, for me, it's Canadians and how hang on. Sorry about that. For me, it's Canadians and how they just seem to want to let this fly and don't ask the questions. Don't, you know, again, it's well, we didn't like Trudeau, but now that he's gone, we don't like Poilievre. And, you know, so he's Trump. What does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what they told me. So that's what all my friends are saying. So that's what I'm going to do.
Well, I also think, and this is why I thought this was important to have our chat on here today, because you said earlier on, everyone's so busy in their lives, right? Just trying to keep their head above the water. And it's not been made easier, I'll say. It's been made harder, I think. Whether you look at food, you look at healthcare, the various issues we've talked about already. And when you say people are like we're kind of we're almost like zombie, like we're not remembering, it's because life is tough to get through.
Yeah. Yeah. We got stuff on our plate. But
Yes,
why do we have to be on team left or team right? Because the majority of Canadians are center. And
yes,
we've
yeah,
seen the power of the center in the last few weeks because Polyev has given it up to Carney. So there's
yeah,
your vote right there. And the other thing that's given the Liberals the boost is the fact that the just sheer collapse of the NDP and the
yeah,
bloc. So those numbers are going in. I mean, even the numbers that Polyev has now are the numbers that Harper won his majority with, years ago. But the problem is there's only two parties and there's nothing either
yes, yes,
way.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
just it's the way it is. But it amazes me how we've become so divided. And again, I really do believe this. And people say Pierre Poilievre's dividing the country. He's dividing the country. He's the leader of the opposition. The opposition doesn't have that much power. They don't
No,
have that much control. As a matter of fact, Jagmeet Singh had more control over this government than Pierre
mm,
Poilievre ever has.
yep,
But he is somehow dividing the country. No, he's not dividing the country. It's a prime minister who, very much like Donald Trump, divides. He
right,
divides and conquers. That's what he does. You're in or you're out. And it's not a case of, okay, I agree with this, but I'm not sure the way you're doing it. I like it a different way. Well, then you're a denier. Then you're not on board.
yeah,
This this prime minister, Justin Trudeau, to me, is the most divisive prime minister of my lifetime. I have never seen
yeah,
anybody
yeah,
that I mean, there's forces, there's this, there's that. I remember the separation stuff with Quebec and stuff. That's an issue. I've never seen a prime minister divide people so much. It's like on vaccination.
yes,
You either
yes,
get it or you're a denier. Climate
right,
change, my way or you're a
or highway,
denier.
yeah,
I'm a self-described feminist. You're either like me or you're what, a wife beater? Like, come on. So he divides everybody on every issue: gender, climate change,
yeah,
economic policy, whatever. He makes you pick a side. That's what Trump does. Same thing. They
yeah,
may be doing it from either sides of the political spectrum, but they're both narcissistic, authoritarian dictators. They really are. And if people don't buy in, wipes the slate clean, puts in another batch. And that's what JT's been doing for 10 years.
well,
10
you've
years.
you've kind of described them as wedges in many ways.
Yeah.
And I think it started very early on, right? Because it's one of those things that I remember when he announced his cabinet, and it was equally split between men and women. And it's like that was the time for this to kind of start happening. And you're kind of going like, but what are their capabilities? Like, are these the best people to be in cabinet? Or is the number one issue is to make sure we have the same number on each side?
No, the number one issue is to make it look like we have the same amount of people on board. The number one issue is to make it appear like
Ah,
we're
see,
feminists. The,
there we
the
go.
number one issue is to make everybody feel warm and fuzzy. And let's be honest, the majority of this peak that we're seeing is women voters, and even those over 55 years of age, which to me is stunning because if
Mm,
you look at the last election, it was the young people that voted in Trudeau and the old people that voted conservative. Now it's switched around. The young people are voting conservative and the older people are voting liberal. So uh, again, it just amazes me how we can't sit through this and go, okay, that's this is that, this is whatever, this is. And instead, we're just so fearful that Donald Trump's going to come in and rape us and that the liberals are the
yes.
only ones that can save us from that.
So,
When he calls the liberals governor, you know,
Scott, yes, absolutely. I mean, again, these are all kind of like, like they're hot seat topics. They're well picked, right? Like the
Oh, yeah,
telecommuting, they're going to
absolutely.
become
They
the
were they were losing
51st.
in they were losing in the polls in the last election when Aaron Toole was the leader. Well, we got to make vaccination mandatory. Well, the problem isn't people don't want to take it. The problem is we can't get it. So what? Let's do it. And then before that, it was women's rights. You know, the
Yes.
conservatives
Yeah.
are going to
Yeah.
set you back to the dark ages with women's rights. It's like, oh my God, here we go
Yeah.
again. And now
But
the wedge issue is Trump to
and there,
distract away from their failed
you,
policy.
that like that to me, that is that distraction. Now, when you mention about how the switch in the youthful side, um, all but the baby boomers, as an example, are in the conservative camp, whereas the baby boomers are moving to the liberal camp. Do you sometimes think that, like, when you start to look at where the wealth of North America is, like, I think it's like 55% is in the baby boomer zone. Like, if you look over those like that term, like post pandemic, just in houses alone, that demographic has gained staggeringly. Whereas if you look to the younger Ruth, I mean, I think it's at record levels that like it's like 15% of the wealth is in millennials and below. Like, do you think that has some of the effect on this conservative versus liberal perspective as well?
You know, because the baby boomers did well, it's the baby boomers' fault that the millennials haven't. Well, the baby boomers are the parents of the millennials,
Yes, absolutely.
and the
Yeah.
millennials voted in Trudeau. So now all of a sudden they're disappointed. And I get it. I get it. He promised them a
Interesting.
rose garden.
Yes. Yes.
But at the end of the day, it was the young people that voted him in, who are now middle-aged people now and saying, well, geez, this didn't work out so well. You know,
Interesting.
so, you know, stop blaming the boomers. The boomers
Yes.
worked
Yes.
hard post-World War to give their
Yep.
kids all the opportunity. But then
Yep.
there was no opportunity. And again,
Yep.
coming back to the housing issue, and they keep talking affordable housing, Doug. We got to build
Yep.
affordable housing.
Absolutely.
No. We need to build housing.
Housing, period.
Housing, period.
Yeah.
Because we're bringing in 1 million immigrants in various forms, and we're building 250,000 houses. Not to mention our own kids. And mind you, I don't think we're doing a lot with fertility these days in Canada. We got to get on that, kiddies. But
Yes.
but again, it's we haven't built. Built has been a bad word.
Mhm.
Build has been a bad word, and I get it. There was urban expansion. We got to control that. But now we're paying the price for that. So you can build 100. No, let me make it simple. You can build 10 affordable houses. But if there's 1,000 people lining up to buy them, they are not affordable anymore.
No.
The point is we need to build more. And now Carney's talking about modular housing. Why doesn't he just say, let's build a ghetto? Let's build a slum?
Yes. Yes.
And now all the liberals, now what's going to happen, Doug? You're going to see mistakes being made because this is rushed, as opposed to doing it over a long period of time. And they will end up in the same place they always feared the conservatives would or will. Because there's no plan. You can't build that. I remember having one academic on saying, you can't build your way out of this. Yeah, you can. Yeah. You get a grip on immigration. So we have the services to provide people, and then you build. That's exactly what you do. But it's amazing. Well, the kids should just live stacked up like cardwood in modular homes or high rises, or they don't want that. And I don't know if you've been in a plane lately. There's a lot of greenery out there. We can do a lot responsibly and grow our country responsibly, environmentally sound, and still be profitable. Investment, engagement, opportunity. And yet we've got into this mindset that all we got to do is save the planet. Just save the planet. It's all that counts. Even though we got, nations banging down our door to buy our clean Canadian liquid natural gas and get their dependency off of Russia. No business case. And now all of a sudden there is. And again, people think because Carney paused the carbon tax, it's gone. It's not gone. And if you listen to some people in your area, I believe, they said it's coming back. Yeah. So, and again, are you going to build the pipelines? What are you going to do? How are you going to make this make this work? Even people in Quebec are more open to a cross-Canada pipeline than he is. And the
So,
majority of Quebecers now are. You know why? Because they want their sovereignty. And
yes,
believe it or
yes,
not, their sovereignty comes with Canada, not with the United States. So if
right,
they have to build
right.
a pipeline through their territory in order to keep their sovereignty, they will.
Mhm.
But our prime minister won't. And people need to press him on that. What are we
Yes,
going to get the big railway built? It comes back to that. Are we
we
going to
did it
get those?
once. We did it once, right?
They've been talking about a high speed rail line between Quebec and
The
Toronto for like since I was, you know.
Yes, and that came out of the blue. So to your point, like you mentioned about where government responsibility lies, like this was back kind of towards the beginning of what we talked about today, and you were talking about just now about what is it? Something like 90% of the population lives within 200K of the border. It's some crazy number like that. And one of the questions that I often kind of think about, because you said like our country, if you've ever driven across it, and I have, it's vast. Like
It's huge. Yeah.
it's mind-boggling. In fact, if you drive across
It
Canada,
takes you a day just to get out of Ontario.
oh yeah, it's more than a day. It's like you just don't realize it, and you kind of go like it's like, yeah, I want to drive across Canada once. Like it's just like it's just that vast. And when you start to look at it, you're going like our government, and I'll put pluralized there in history, has not done a very good job of spreading us out as a people. Like when you talk about affordable housing, right? Where are we putting in housing today? Like just period housing. It's just filling up the space we're already at, by and
Yeah.
large,
Well,
right?
that's those are environmentalists. We don't want to. We got to control that urban sprawl, Doug. You don't want Barrie getting big. You don't want Peterborough getting big. Or
Why not?
Kelowna or any of those other areas. And you know
If
what?
it,
Canadians have become angry. And you know how I know
mm,
they become angry? Because they're fighting on the golf courses of Kelowna.
really,
Did you see that clip?
I did not see
Oh, I'm
that.
sorry. There was a clip on the news this past week of two elderly foursomes, and somehow it turned into fisticuffs because somebody wasn't moving fast enough. And they were in, I think it was West Kelowna or whatever. It's like, my God, violence has even come to the golf course.
Wow. Yeah. Well, I was going to say that I can see frustration in the golf world. There's no question about it. But it is kind of humorous when you think about we've
Yes.
got housing and healthcare issues, and we're fighting on a golf course over how to put a
Yeah,
hole.
that's a first world problem, Doug.
Yeah, I know we're kind of odd that. Well, that kind of gives you an idea of the lifestyle that we've been able to enjoy in this country, right?
Well,
In in many ways,
at one
and
time, not
and
anymore.
we're
Sorry.
well.
Next
It's
question.
to me these are all kind of stemming from the situation we're in, and like where are we going, and now we've got this big, I guess you could say, cloud that's south of the border that's knows how to, what I call this, viral signaling, like or virtual
Virtue
signaling,
signaling. Yeah. Virtue signaling. Yeah.
and kind of like and knows how to do that very, very well. And how we're receptive to it, kind of mind-boggling. Like sometimes it's like, okay, and how do we build up? Because I think one of the things that you said here to me that's really important is someone said to you, you said one of the professors you talked to, you can't build your way out of it. How else do you get out of it, Scott?
I have no idea. I think there's a group of people that just think the young people have to today accept less than their parents did. And it's like, good luck telling my kids that. Do you want to come
Well,
over right now? You'll get a bun in the side of the head.
I'll tell you one of the things, and this has been part of this podcast, is I've had a lot of, I'll say youthful people, like, so I'm going to say 25 to 40-year-olds. And one of the things that is almost unanimous across, as I leave the conversation, the world's in good hands. It really is, and you probably see that even with your own kids, what they're doing, what they're looking at. They're not they're what we're concerned about um tends not to be, okay, I'm just going to lie on the couch all day and not do anything because there's no hope for us. That's not what I get in back in talking to the youth. They're ready to go. I had a young doctor on, and like we, as an example, he was using AI, and he says, we have all the solutions in AI, we just don't know how to use them yet. and you're kind of thinking, okay, this is kind of cool that this is kind of going on. And maybe this next generation's going to figure out some of the things that are a little smarter than maybe what we've kind of had to deal with. Or maybe smarter is not the right word. Maybe it's just the world, and as it adjusts and as how we're able to work with technology. Because you just said the switch here is happening with, there seems to be a youthful push for the conservative world versus the older, don't change, kind of liberal world of the older people. And I sometimes think that, like, and I guess I don't like to say it, but I guess I fit into that. I don't like to think I think that way, but I sometimes think, I guess I fit into that older demographic. I'm a baby boomer and type of things like that. But
By the way, I
um,
want to get this out of the open right away. We are
good.
not baby boomers. Baby
Oh,
boomers were not born. Like again, this is something that's, I remember studying this, and then the internet came out and said, we're baby boomers. And it's like
yes.
a boom is when a peak starts to subside. The
Yep.
boom in the post-World War II population
Yes.
boom
Yeah.
started to peak in around 1959, 60, as birth control became more and more prevalent. Now, it continued to grow to 1965, but it's never come down. It just climbs at slower rates. So at the end of the day, the peak was going like this, and then it started to arc. And then,
Okay.
65, it's good. 45, 65. That's a nice category. Let's go with that. Whereas actually, if you look at the graph, it started to trend out at 59. Then by 60 and 61, by 62, birth control was readily available. So to say that, you're a baby boomer until 1965 is like goofy. And I don't know, but I'm sure
I
you
like.
know baby boomers. I know baby boomers.
Oh, I do, absolutely.
We're not the same generation. They're a different
You
generation. They're a
it
little older than us. And
Yes, it
and
definitely
so
feels that way.
anyway, I don't know how we got off topic, but I hate when
Oh
people
no,
say you're a baby boomer. You're a baby boomer. It's like no, I don't know. I
no,
have I have I have relatives that are baby boomers. I have cousins that
sure
are
do
older
I.
than me. They're baby
Yeah.
boomers, but I'm not a baby boomer. But anyway, getting back to what
Okay.
you were saying.
No,
Hey,
you
let
made
me
me feel good. You
let
made
me
me
say
feel good.
this. Let me say this. I have complete, and I say this to my kids. And their friends. I have complete confidence in this generation. I feel sorry for the
Yes.
people that are caught between the two, that might be in the 30s or 40s and are struggling to get ahead and
Okay.
don't have the
Yes.
opportunity that we did, or our parents had, or our grandparents had, or their grandparents had. It's
Right.
not just the baby boomers that have had the opportunity. Canada's been growing for an awfully long time. It's sucked for the last 10 years. So, I have total confidence in this generation. And I say this to my kids because you are starting in a new world. You
Yes.
are starting, the slate has just been wiped clean, and you get to be the first one down the ski slope after a nice blanket of snow. And you get to create what's new because you don't have these preconceived ideas of what my life was like or millennials' lives were like. My kids call
Mhm.
millennials granolas. It's hilarious. They make more fun of them than they do baby boomers. Baby boomers are old news now. It's the millennials they're all attacking because they
Okay.
voted for Trudeau. But I have total confidence in them
Yeah.
because they're smart and they're hungry. They're hungry and they
Mm.
want opportunity, and the world has changed, and they're in a perfect position to take advantage of that. I feel
Right.
bad for the people that are in the 30s, 40s, just trying to make this work on an old system. And it
Right.
just hasn't been very kind to them. But again, this is not a generation. This is a government that has failed to keep up with
Yes.
progress, that has
Yeah.
tried to dumb down, to flatten production, flatten growth, flatten investment. And we're paying the price. Bob Ray said one time, and I voted for Bob Ray when he was an NDPer. Bob
Eesh.
Ray, but Bob Ray then became a liberal.
Yes.
And when he became a liberal, he said this: you can't pay for programs without prosperity. And Justin Trudeau grew up with a
Mm.
silver spoon in his mouth and a gold
Yeah.
credit card in his pocket. He's never
Yeah.
had to do that.
Right.
He's the
Yeah.
highest paid drama teacher of anyone I know. So
No
come on. Come on.
question. But we heavily voted him in. There's no question about that.
And he was going to change the electoral system.
Yeah. There were a lot of things.
However, in the last two elections, he's lost the popular vote. He's only had the popular vote once in his first election, never in the second. or third. So if he had
mm-hmm.
changed it, he wouldn't have got elected.
Yes. No, that to me is a significant thing that we often really forget about, I think.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that.
And here's another one. Sorry, Doug, they're coming at me fast and furious.
Good.
Everybody's complaining because in the U.S. you get 2 terms.
Yes.
Donald Trump's talking about getting a 3rd term.
Third. That's right.
My God. And if Donald Trump gets a 3rd term, do you not think Barack Obama's going to go after a 3rd term? So this will all kind of weigh out. And here's another thing. Well, everybody's screaming that Donald Trump may try to manipulate himself into a 3rd term because he's only on his 2nd and final. The Liberals are going for a 4th.
Yeah. Well,
We don't seem to mind that, though.
But this is kind of, to me, that has really been like made me aware this time, and we spoke about it earlier on, was the fact of how, like, we have a prime minister for the last month that does not have a riding and has not been elected in his role. I think it's
and if he loses, he'll be gone. He's not going to stick around to be leader of the opposition and let Pierre Poilievre slap him around. That ain't going to happen.
Well, I mean, Scott, you just mentioned a very important thing. You've had Poilievre stick around here for quite a while now, right? In his position as the opposition. And you're completely, to me, right. There's no way he's sticking around.
No. He's like Ignatieff.
Well, I've often said a couple of times that I kind of felt that was what was going to happen, was going to be another Ignatieff situation.
And I honestly think there's a group of very powerful liberals that convinced him to take the gig because he needs this, like he needs a hole in the head. You know, I was talking to somebody where he lives. They live in New York.
Yes.
No, he lives in Nepean. No, he's running in Nepean. He lives with his family in New York.
So Scott, there's a real one right there. Okay, we got fact and fiction getting mixed up. I've heard very strongly said that he lives in Canada, and I've thought
I'm sure he has a house in Canada.
Yes,
he's got a house everywhere. He's a freaking billionaire.
Yes,
of course he does, and each one is a tax write-off.
But he doesn't live here.
Yes, he lives everywhere. He's a globalist, and there's nothing wrong. There's nothing wrong with that. God, if I could be a globalist, I'd love to do it too. Come on, Doug.
Absolutely.
Come on. We're going to my place in Gay Paris. Let's go. We'll put the family up.
And I'd be climbing aboard too, for sure.
Sure. Bring the band.
But to me, those are things that kind of come back. And that's why I come back to what we were saying here. We've got a person that's been in this position for a while. So you just mentioned Carney doesn't need this job. He's been advised to take this by some powerful liberals. We think, I guess we don't for sure know. You look at this and you kind of go, you've got another side that's kind of hungry. And you also mentioned this with regards to the youth. They're hungry. Do we not think that that's a good thing? To be hungry? To the sense of, we could do some stuff here. And are we hearing that at all? I don't know that, I'm not hearing it at all.
Making money and being successful is a bad thing. It's you're ripping everybody off. We're going to tax the big business, drive them out of here, and we have no jobs or pension. And getting back to Carney, he doesn't need, he needs this like he needs a hole in the head, but don't think he's not going to make it work for him. Just as Trump will. Or has. And we hear that his former company is vested in the modular housing things that he's preaching, and the renewable energy projects and whatever. So yeah, he'll make another $1 billion off of it, but when you got quite a few, what's another one, right? I mean,
apparently it's still quite attractive.
Well, sure. I mean, everybody wants more. It doesn't matter how much you have. Some people just want more. And again, he is as much like the average Canadian as Trudeau was, probably even less so, because Trudeau was just kind of born into money and then kind of was a playboy. At least Carney, let's be honest, Carney's resume is quite impressive, but that doesn't mean he's going to be a great prime minister, nor does it mean he's got Canada's best interests or Canadians' best interests in mind. So, it's funny how Trump's the big bad businessman, but Carney's not.
Yeah. It's
You
it's
know,
how it's how it's spun, right? I mean,
it
it's just
is.
how we spin it.
And believe me, the libs are way better at it than anybody else, because that's why we're even here. That's why we're even talking about this, because they should have been toast long ago. And again,
Yeah.
Trudeau's gone. It's
Yeah.
amazing how the party just shot up. And yet nobody's asking them, well, how are all these people now doing the opposite? And how does the old government, like, they're all the same people.
Well, this
You know,
is why, like, I can't help, Scott, but think that we may see a similar result that happened with the south of the border.
it's
Like,
possible.
and
Well,
when you said
it's
go ahead.
it's only there's only so many ways it can turn out. It'll either be a minority for one of each or
Yes.
the majority. So I mean,
Right.
and do I want to predict it? I have never predicted a winner in my life. So I
Yeah.
am not gonna,
Yeah. I'm not going
I'm not
there.
gonna try to do it now. But I could see a lot of things. I could see a minority government on either side, but I could also
Mhm.
see just a humongous blowout and people just going, what happened? That wasn't supposed to happen. Everybody said that this person was leading, and now they're. And if that happens, it's just going to, the faith that people have in the institutions like the media and whatever, they're just going to go, "What the hell? You guys are full of shit."
Well, I mean, like, it just when I saw your post on the weekend, and I hadn't seen the popularity of it yet, but when, like, you mentioned that earlier on, and you're kind of going like, and this is one of the things to me, Scott, that we just lose fact of, because we're in our houses all the time in front of our screens, right? Or we're listening to podcasts like Better Than Not. And it's like we've kind of missed the boots on the ground. So when you hear someone actually experiencing it, to me, there's something real about that. And to your point about how come 2 million people went out in Canada to vote on a long, sunny weekend of Easter? Like, that seems really
Well, normally, historically, as I said, that means change. In this
right.
election, it could mean change or terrified, meaning of Trump. So it's
Yes.
whatever one of those messages comes across. But I think every day that goes by where we see more of Trump and how he's doing this and
Yes.
how the tariffs are there, but then as soon as the stock market goes down, the tariffs kind of get eased a bit, or this, that. He's cutting a new deal. He's retorquing the updated NAFTA agreement that he signed. So, you know, he's a businessman. He's, a fish oil salesman, whatever you want to call him.
Yeah.
And that's how you have to take him. You can't sit there and look at the guy and say, he's Hitler. I mean, I'm sure there's,
Oh,
lots of
no.
characteristics, and I don't even want to go down that road. But
Right.
at the end of the day, what are they going to do? Load up
Right.
the military and put them
Yeah.
along the border in Buffalo? Like, do you
Yeah.
really think that? And do you
It's
think Americans are going to let them do that?
no.
So come on. And here's
It's
the other thing we have to remember. Guess what? In one of the midterms, like halfway through his presidency, which is, I think, another year or so, year and a bit,
yes.
he's got
Yes.
he's got midterms. And
Yeah.
he could be neutered at that point
Yes.
because they lose control of all three levels. So
Right.
it's to sit
Well,
there and pick a prime minister because of one issue, and the one issue is Donald Trump. That's just absurd. That's stupid. That's like a
well,
Netflix show.
do you know what's really bizarre is when you say it like that. When you call it out and you say it like that, it's like, really? Are we, I hate to say the word weak like that, or saying we're going to base our election on the US presidency?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
like Scott, I'm here listening, and I'm kind of going like, wow, to your point, that could be a Netflix show that no one would actually believe.
Yeah.
It reminds
It's
me.
fair. I find it, especially a person who is in media for over 40 years. I find it
Right.
incredibly frustrating because there's so many of us
Oh,
that for so long have just tried to get both sides of a story out. And again,
right.
people, oh, you're just hammering Trudeau. You just hate the Liberals. And, yeah, you're right.
No.
But that doesn't mean I'll never vote for them again.
Right.
What the Liberals need to do, and I think I said this on my post, the Liberals need to stand down, go back to their corner, and ask themselves, look in the mirror, Rosemary,
Mm.
and understand why they are not resonating with Canadians, why they are out of touch. And it's not because they're not speaking loud enough or they're not saying it to enough people. It's because they're out of touch. They're
Yeah.
out of touch. And they need to sit on the sidelines for a couple of years and understand why Trudeau was accepted or not accepted the way he was, and why that changed with Carney.
Yeah.
And go back and bring us a new party with a new leader that gives us some hope, rather than sitting there and whining about and giving all these characteristics,
Yeah.
because despite what you're saying about them, people still rather have them than you.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you gotta face that. It's like being a sports team who loses a final. Sometimes it's like, wow, we did our best. Other times, you know what? They were just better than us.
That's right. That's right.
They were better at executing than we were. And
Yeah.
honestly, I really think that the Liberals have sold this woke socialist, and I know those are easy words to throw around, but they make it so easy. That they've sold this, that it's our job to save the planet at the expense on the backs of Canadians, and
Right.
and if you don't believe that, you're some sort of loser. And the reason Poilievre did as well as he has done is because Justin Trudeau took the once great left of center Liberal Party and he drove it into the extreme left ditch with the NDP.
Mm.
And now
Yeah.
that he's
Yes.
gone, they've done a U-turn so fast, everybody's head's spinning. We got whiplash, and they're struggling to get back to the center and try to sell that. Well, why did they leave there in the first place?
Yeah. And maybe boots on the ground, that's what's actually happening, Scott. Maybe that what the information we're seeing all over our little phones and stuff is an attempt to turn that around. But maybe boots on the ground says, no, you know what? You can't do this. Do you know what? When you say what you just said with regard to the current times, it reminds me so much of the Harper world 11 years ago. Like almost the exact same things, it seems, could have been said. They're out of
Yeah,
touch.
yeah,
They're not
yep,
hearing what's going
yeah.
on, what the populace want. It's just that it's not red, it was blue then. Like to me,
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
astounding. It's like it's plus la chose, plus c'est la même
And
chose. Like it's
and Gesundheit. And here we're all trying to understand why the public is digesting this, why they are
yeah.
falling for this. And in the midst of all this discussion, we're talking about interference by the Chinese
Oh,
Communist Party
oh, there you
or
go.
Iran or anybody.
Uh,
We're talking about election interference. Does anybody know what that is? What does that mean? Does that
yes.
mean people are coming up and taking your pencil and writing in your X? No, that's not what it means. You're talking about the bullshit on social media. Half of it is bots sent by just trying to sway people's opinion. Here's the other thing was,
Huge. That's huge.
the thing came out, Mark Carney has been targeted by the Chinese Communist Party. Oh my God. Because we all know from Sam Cooper from the Bureau, used to be with
Yes.
Global, from Stephen Chase from the Globe and Mail, who broke the story a long time ago. The Chinese Communist Party interferes with every party, but their outcome is a liberal minority government. That's how they get the most influence. So whatever ridings they'll tweak, NDP, they'll interfere with all of them to get what they want. But then to turn around and the media sells it like he's been targeted. So you dig a bit deeper. Well, what happened? He was targeted by the Chinese Communist Party for interference because they were boosting his posts. And they estimated like 3 million people saw these posts. So
Really?
It's not like they were saying, don't vote for Carney. They're trying to push his campaign forward. And yes, his campaign was targeted. Absolutely. but it was targeted for the benefit of his party and the benefit of China. He wasn't targeted like, and the whole thing with the candidate at Don Valley North, I think it is, Don. Remember him standing up and crying, oh my God, he's going to redeem him. Oh, where the hell did he go? And then we find out that the candidate that was hired to replace him stands up in Markham and says, there's a bounty out on this conservative guy. You should take him to the consulate in Toronto and you'll get $1 million.
Wow.
And and Carney refuses to turf him until the pressure is so bad that a couple of days later they finally pressure him. And who do they replace him with? But a candidate who is equally as controversial and influential with the Chinese Communist Party. So it's just amazing. And that is also a fear I have, that, that's never enough to influence the election. Well, if it's influencing how people vote, that is influencing the election.
No question.
Because although you're not going in and doctoring any numbers, you're not, look, there was 5 million votes that came in from here. No, that's not what's happening. They're passing and spreading misinformation. And it's working. And it's working because everybody is more scared of Trump than they are of their own policies, their own tariffs within provinces, their own taxes. It's pretty hypocritical. And Canadians walk around with their nose up like they're somehow better than everybody else. Are you kidding me? You've let this happen. You've let this happen.
Yeah.
Because you're being influenced by social media that in some situations is being influenced by outside sources.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that's a real.
And nobody, I remember this. We were the last ones to say Huawei does not get to build or be the backbone of our 5G system.
Right.
Everybody else, all the Five Eyes, no. We were the last ones to do it. And the only reason Trudeau announced it was because the major players, the companies, they just did it on their own because they can't do business with the other ones if they don't follow suit. Yet here we are now, everybody's arguing. You see all these commercials on TV. TikTok is the only reason my business has survived. If it wasn't for TikTok, oh my God, can we not invent our own damn TikTok for Christ's sakes? Instead, just like Huawei, you've got a company that is under the umbrella of the Chinese Communist Party owning, running, manipulating one of the biggest platforms in the free world. And by the way, our shit doesn't get to go over there. There's there's none of our stuff going there, but we're getting theirs. It's a one-way street. Yeah. So it just, people are just, they just drink the Kool-Aid. It amazes me. And it's like, sorry. So you talk about what we become. We're so cowardice, stupid, and naive. We can't even make a TikTok. Go talk to Jim Balsley. Maybe he can help you out. He came up with a pretty good invention once. Yeah. It's nuts. We've cowered. We're in the fetal position, naked, crying. Don't hurt us, Donald Trump. Don't hurt us. Stand up and defend yourself. Stand up and work instead of handouts.
The bizarre part of what you just said is he's looking for that. In Art of the Deal, he likes that.
Yes,
that's the part he likes, right?
He brought Musk and Rubio into the same room. Remember way back at the beginning, and they all started fighting, and he was loving it. But then the press was so bad. That's a little wacko, Donald. You got to keep that out of the public eye. But he did the same thing with Rubio and Musk.
Yes,
let them go. He does it with his damn kids.
Well, it is quite. It's quite a story. There's no doubt about that. Well, but I said, this is the part that I keep
and again,
back.
to me, Trump and Trudeau are very, very similar that way. From total opposite sides of the political spectrum, completely different styles, but they're both the same. They want it all. They don't want to be told to go home.
No, that's a very interesting observation, because a lot of people probably wouldn't agree with you on that. But I think
they see
that's
the politics.
Quite
well, again, I'm not talking politics. Politics, it's left and right, night and day. But personalities,
I
think Trump and Trudeau are way more the same than Poilievre and Trudeau or Trump or anyone else. You
Right,
know,
right.
they just
No,
share the same side of the political spectrum. So is every conservative like Trump? Yes. In a liberal's eyes, they are.
well, yes, I was going to say, depending on what glasses you're wearing
Yes.
and how you look at that, it's like, well, you got that stamp, so you'll always and forever be that. That's why I find it really interesting how you've been saying, I voted for Ray, NDP, I voted conservative, I voted liberal. Like, we're not fixed on that state. But you know what I find also, Scott, when you say that, is this is the carryover from 10 times the population on our world, right? On our nation. And that is, I think we're becoming more like that all the time. Like like you said, we're down to two parties, right?
Uh yeah, but I don't think that'll I think the next election it'll be a whole new ball game. It's
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
I don't think you'll see that. I don't think you'll
Do
see
you do
that.
you think that will get adjusted south of the border with the US?
They have a different system than we do, so
They
I'm not
have it's a
sure. You
it's
know,
also a
but
very they're a republic, right? Like
yeah,
like whether we like it or not,
yeah.
that is quite a different mindset, right?
Yeah, and I think what we don't realize, and I sort of dabbled in politics for a bit a few months ago, and what we don't realize is in each individual political party, there's the same riff. There, whether it's liberal or conservative, whether it's
Yes, they're
NDP,
people.
whether it's Republicans or Democrats. Like you look at the Democrats, like many people looked at Biden very much as a centrist, but then you got Bernie Sanders. Well, in Canada, Bernie Sanders is with the NDP.
Yes.
So there's those factions are represented, and we're seeing that in the conservatives. There's the conservatives that are more to the right, and there's more the center conservatives. Like we see, the everybody's trying to make something of the feud between Doug Ford and Pierre Poilievre.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
Doug
right.
Ford's more of a centrist, Pierre's more to the right, but
Yeah.
they're still both conservatives. So, but people are trying to pit one against each other because they want to divide and conquer.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, that's
And Doug Ford has said that at the end of the day, and he said some things that probably don't support Pierre Poilievre a lot, but he's never ever once and several times have said, "I'm voting for my conservative candidate in my riding. I'm voting conservative. I'm a conservative." So just so you know,
he said that.
yes,
He
he
said
said it. He said it a couple of times because
Oh,
everybody else puts words in his mouth and say, "You know what? You know what?" I heard somebody say this. You know what Donald Trump, or you know what Doug Ford wants? He wants a liberal government because usually there's this, if liberals are in power federally, then conservatives are provincially, and vice versa. So he actually wants. It's like, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? Doug Ford would build on the head of a pin if he could, and there's no way the liberals are going to allow him to do that. So.
Do you know what's so interesting with what you said? And this is why I think it'd be so interesting to chat with some of these individuals, because it would be like whether it's Doug Ford, Polyev, any of them, like that we've kind of gone through. Because
I've interviewed both of them several times.
So you have their public persona that we see on our social media platforms and in the news, and then when you have that conversation with them, like as an example, what did you pull away when you chatted with Doug Ford?
They're all people. They all do this because they want to, and if honestly, even Pierre Poilievre, he could go to private industry and consult and make more money than he's making now and not have to put up with the bullshit.
Amazing.
So, yeah, I mean, funny thing with Doug Ford, he came into the studio and I said, "Doug, I want you to put me in a headlock. Just put me in a headlock. I want to picture you put me in a headlock and give me a noogie." And he's like, "Okay." And he goes to take his coat off and his hand, no, you can't do that. That'll end up all over social media. You can't do that. Oh, come on, let's do it. It'll be fun. And, we ended up having a quite a good rapport. But when he walked in, very defensive because they don't know what you're going to be like, right? So
yes, for sure.
You just try to be open and honest. And so at the end of the thing, and the interview went well, I said, "Come on, Doug, give me a shot." And by this time, he already had his coat on, his overcoat. He takes off his overcoat and he stands in front of our sign and he's giving me a noogie like this. It was hilarious. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So,
that's cool.
and on Pierre Poilievre, I tried so hard to crack him. And I remember him calling me. He'd call me at the end of the day and you could tell he was exhausted. He's like, "Hey, how are you? All right. Okay, here we
Wow.
go. And then
Wow.
boom, into performance mode, right? And I'll never forget when he won Canadian Press Newsmaker of the Year. And it's like, I thought, how ironic that he's Canadian Press's News Person of the Year. Yet apparently he hates the media and he'll never talk to them and nobody ever does it. It's like, shit, he came on my show about a half a dozen times. What's the problem?
That's cool.
And I
That's
came
cool.
right out to him, and I again with the whole purpose of just trying to show his human side, and that's my critique of Polyev. If he had gotten rid of a little bit more of the prickly, and we saw more of the human side, which we did at the very end of the debate, it was quite poignant.
Right.
Then I think people would like him. But I got on the phone, and it's like, Pierre, you have just been, made Canada's Newsmaker of the Year. How does that make you feel? And I'm thinking I'm going to get him laughing or whatever.
Yep.
I don't care about any of that stuff. I care about how Canadians win. And then he went right on with a spiel. And you know what? To his credit, good for you. He's not going to be sidetracked by some ass like me. He's going to stick to his message. And that's what he did. But, again, Trudeau's gone. So he's got to neutralize that a bit. He's got to appeal more. We all know how bad Trudeau was. That's why he was kicked out. But you got to move. And it's not about focusing on Trump. It's just being more approachable. And that's just, and I've heard so many people say that, that Poilievre that you see is just a different guy than what you see, but that's his shtick. And I said this to my wife. I said, you watch during the campaign, all of a sudden you're going to see his wife. Bing. That's exactly what happened. The kids are always in tow. And he needs to do more of that sort of stuff. He needs to, get away from, again, he looks like Carney. He looks like Carney more than he looks like Trump, for God's sakes. So, no but he certainly needs to soften that image. And I think but you know what? I like the tough guy. It's like, I'm not looking for, a wimp to be in office. I want someone that's going to stand up for what they believe in, whether it's what I believe in or not. They won. I want to see some, but these guys just dilly-dally. They just keep trying to change the channel and communication themselves out of things or into things.
It's funny that you mentioned so much of this on Polyev, because I think of Stephen Harper, and a lot of the feedback for him was similar. Like,
oh yeah, he had that funny haircut, the light blue sweater. He dropped his kid off to school and he shook his hand. It's like, who does that? Well, the kid didn't want to embarrass the kid. I don't know. And then all of a sudden he sat down at the National Arts Center and starts playing the piano. And everybody's like,
wow,
I didn't know he could do that. Maybe he's even got a tie-dye shirt.
He liked the Beatles.
yeah, he did like Let It Be, didn't he?
He wrote a hockey book while he was in office.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah,
it's like multi-talented guys that can kind of do that.
Again, but smart guy. Again, like Justin's dad. Justin is not in, and again, I don't mean to be insultive, but he's not in that category. He's a lover. He's a lover, not a fighter.
Well, you also got to look at what he looks like, right? I mean, come on, like when he was first elected, he was the golden boy, right? He was the model.
Oh yeah.
He was the guy that was going to bring everything. Yeah, like he had all those things. And I'll say, when he first came in, I've done this flip so often, but like, he's a very eloquent speaker.
Oh, he's got a lot of charisma. Oh yeah. And I hear, if you meet him, I've never met him personally, but if you meet him, he's like, he's right in your eyes until he realizes you're not with him. Then he looks at everybody else around you.
So to me, those are all kind of things, but like you said from the beginning, maybe it's time for change, right? It's time for change.
And you know what? Guess what, people? I don't know if you've ever heard about this before, but if you don't like who comes in a week, in another few years, you get another chance to vote again and make your team the winner.
There you go.
The great thing about the Stanley Cup, it comes around every year.
Yep.
But we've got into this mode. It's like of extremism where if my team doesn't win, we all go up in flames. It's just everything's going to explode.
And it doesn't work that way at all anymore. I mean, look at the team in Toronto, right? Like, we're at the point every year they're going all the way, Scott.
Yeah, yeah. All the way to the golf course.
Won the first round, first game of the playoffs, I think. They're going all the way. And it's like I think personally to play in Toronto must be one of the hardest
Oh,
and
yes,
most
absolutely.
difficult places to play, because
Kessel will
I
say
don't
that.
like you, you
Yeah.
you you can't. You probably talked to some of the guys that were on the Leafs, and
Yeah,
it's like
yeah, yeah.
I think the pressure must be just
I don't think
unbelievable.
I don't think that pressure is felt on Justin Trudeau. I don't think that pressure is felt on Mark Carney, because they've got bigger fish to fry. And if this gig fails,
Yes.
they got a paycheck. So,
Yeah.
and you know what? People are at their wits' end. They're stretched, they're
Yes.
frustrated, they're angry, they're tired, they're fatigued. We just came out of a global pandemic, and now we got to deal with this shit. Like, come on. And again, the Trump thing is a threat. It needs to be attended to. We need to have a plan, whatever way it decides to go. But to sit and let that dictate our vision and what we are and what we want to be, like, it's the same thing. Like, like Poilievre's going to bring back, he's going to take away abortion rights. He's going to bring this. He's going to bring that. Who said? You? Because he's a conservative and you're not?
Well,
and that's the way they do it in the United States of America? Like, it's nuts. It's like the whole handgun thing. We're going to ban this, ban that. Don't ban anything. And again, I don't have a gun. I couldn't care less. But focus on, if you really want to do something around firearms, secure your border. That's where all the weapons are coming from. Not from some farmer, who's got his friggin' shed broken into. Like,
but yeah, there's a whole other side to that world. There's like that to me.
But you
those
could take every one of these issues, Doug, every single one, and come to the same conclusion. Yes. And it's time for Canadians to do that. Everybody goes, the adult in the room. I love when they talk about slogans. Pierre's all slogans. Save the planet, tax the rich. I'm sorry, are those not slogans? Except from the other side of the political spectrum. It's just silly. And we're not looking in the mirror at what we can do, how we can better inform ourselves, how we can better participate. And let's be honest, life in Canada has been pretty good for the last few generations. It's gotten better each one except this one. And I think we've just got a little too full of ourselves and started to read our own headlines and think that we're better than the Americans. We're better than this. We're better than that. We're not. We're fighting for our freaking lives like everybody else is. And we're all facing the same challenges. And these are self-inflicted wounds because we've had a government that has not managed us economically over the last decade. Running up the credit card and not paying it off. End of story. It's not rocket science. It really isn't.
No, I think those are our words are pretty powerful. Like, especially how we look at ourselves. Are we looking in the mirror? I think we need, like, as you said,
we're looking for somebody to blame. It's their fault. It's Trump's fault. It's Trudeau's fault. It's Poilievre's fault. It's everybody else's fault but ours. You voted these people in.
Yeah. We did.
Sorry.
No, not me. But
yeah, exactly.
And to me, those are very true statements and very accurate.
Like, getting back to social media, like, I haven't been on social media since August. And I do this one thing and it just explodes. No. Like, on X, I forwarded some articles, but I've never posted my thoughts. I just forward shit. And then this was the first Facebook thing that I wrote. And I also copied that and put it on X, and it took off.
Yes.
It took off on both. And it amazes me the response that is coming across and what people are basing their decisions are. This is a cult. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. It's like they know everything Poilievre's going to do, but seem to have totally forgotten everything that the Liberals have done. And I don't get it. And I think a lot of it is social media, foreign influence. People just getting a rolling scroll on whatever they believe in, and more of it they consume, the more of it they get. And here's hoping that we sat around the Easter dinner table this past weekend and honestly had some of these discussions.
Yes, like, and hopefully we have, because you said earlier on, much has divided us, right? And whether we're talking about wedge issues, whether we're talking about virtue signaling, they divide us. But at the same time, much of our world is geared around the social media world, and that divides us because it's like me or don't like me.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it's very, use the
Yeah.
word binary. It's a on or off. Like there's no mixture there. Very few people often comment. It's just on or off. And it's kind of Napoleonic. You're either with me or
Yeah.
you're against me.
Who does that sound like?
A few people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I agree 100%, but social media is not going anywhere, and there's enough
No,
good in the world from it. I mean, it's great. It's a great tool. It gives everybody a voice, but that doesn't mean we have to believe it all.
no, and that, I think that's where the challenge is, and that's why I think it was great the way you said it. I hope everybody sitting around the Easter table is having an open discussion on this, and not all decided on based on some maybe flimsy information at best. In
It
fact,
really
I'm
it
to
really
go.
comes down to personality wars. I like this person. I don't like
Yes,
that person.
and that's never changed. That's who we are as humans, right?
Yep.
Like that's just who we are, and so hopefully we can kind of get past, despite all our technology, despite all our information, we're still like that. We're
Yeah.
still like,
Well, I remember people saying to me, "It's not who you know or what you know; it's who you know."
yeah.
And I remember being stupid enough to repeat that to a guidance counselor when I was in high school. I won't mention his name, but
No,
anyway,
that's good.
and I was going to say, "Do you remember him, Doug?" And
Yes.
I said, "Well, radio industry is really hard to get into, and it's like
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
challenge, and it's a tough haul." And I said, "I hear it's more of who you know rather than what you know." And he goes, "What isn't?" You know, like if you're a company, if you're hiring somebody for your company, and you have two people,
Yeah.
and both people have exactly the same
Yep.
qualifications,
Yeah.
equal on every single
Everything.
category, but one and not the other.
It's easy.
I'm not going to hire the one I know because that's not right. Said who? What you're using is your intelligence to break a tie,
Yeah.
saying, well, I know this person and I know they have the qualities I want. So that puts the balance towards that candidate. It's not a we're all equal, but we're not all the same.
No. No. And
And
that's hard. That's hard for us because we like it simple. We like it simplified.
yeah,
You know,
yeah.
to that story, I remember working with a guy who was neighbors to Connor McDavid, and they were talking, and he said that what he had learned was that, to the exact same point, you've got two equal players of relatively the same kind of abilities, right, as hockey players: shoot, score, skate, hands, all those things. But if one of those has a parent that was a professional athlete, that's who they're picking.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
But
Pedigree.
you kind of go like, oh, that's so unfair. No, you kind of go like, you want to
No, that's
win.
research. That's research.
Absolutely.
That's
Right.
that's consuming the data and coming up with a conclusion. That's what that is. Because if you don't do that, it's like reading a book and skipping a page.
Yes. The
What
one that's on
happened?
the exam.
Yes. What happened
Yes.
between page 300 and page 303?
I missed that part. I missed that part. But I just like, it's funny how you learn these things as you go about, because they're quite often quite different from what you were taught in school.
It's the only great thing about getting old, Doug.
It is very, very cool. And I was
Oh
going to say,
man.
it's been kind of cool. I was going to say, here we go again. We've talked a lot about this today. And I'm hoping for those listeners listening today that what Scott's been able to parlay to us, to kind of communicate to us, gives you kind of what this podcast is all about. Some thought provoking ideas and different ways of looking, and maybe shifting your perspectives to what you actually thought it was going to be. Because I think we're in a mode like that. And I think in many ways you've already mentioned this, but we're controlled and manipulated in ways because we spend so much time on our technological devices that we're not even aware of it necessarily. And
No,
sometimes you need to
we allow ourselves to be influenced that way.
absolutely, absolutely. And because it touches something in us that we kind of like. I remember I just saw the other day, you were talking about some of the things you see. Somebody was saying, bring a pen to the voting booth because they only have pencils. Like alluding to they're going to erase what you selected and put on who they want.
You know, my daughter even brought that up. It's like,
Oh, really?
where are you getting that? Oh, it's on the internet. It was on social media. It was on whatever the hell she's on.
Yeah.
And it's like, really? Yeah. Like, and I think there's a reason they use the pencil. The equipment they're using monitors that or checks. I'm not sure what it is, but it's something to do with.
If you think about it,
it's something to do with the outdated technology they're using to count your vote.
Well, but it might also have something to do with the person voting, and they decide, no, that's not who I wanted. This is who I wanted.
Yeah, you're right.
So they can erase it. Right?
But you know what? Again, whenever we are fearful. Whenever we don't have the right answer, we come up with a conspiracy theory. Well, it must be this. It must be that. It must be, Polyev must have a pencil factory somewhere. Like it's bizarre.
That makes us write his name.
Yes,
It's like
we don't give a damn about Huawei or TikTok or any of that. We don't care about any of that stuff. All your information is being farmed like it's a friggin' cob of corn. Nobody cares about that.
I sometimes wonder whether we're more in a fearful zone than we've been ever because of the things and the way it's promoted to us. Now, I didn't obviously live through the Second World War, but I sometimes wonder, and I remember why this acronym stays in my head, but fear represents false evidence appearing real.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, that is so accurate, right? When you start to put it together and it's like, why am I feeling fear because of this?
Where's the quiet confidence? Where's the confidence believing in your ability? If this happens, we got it. We're good. Gonna hurt. We're gonna good, but we got it. Like, where's that quiet confidence? Because that's what Canadians used to have. Yeah. Now we're just a bunch of whiny socialists trying to save the world. Here, let me tell you one more story. And this has to do with politics in a roundabout way. So I'm talking to my cousin, who's a few years older than me. I think he's 65-ish. And he was born deaf, hearing impaired, and he's had that handicap all his life. And he's always struggled with it, but he's gone on to have a great life and to provide for himself and all of that sort of thing. So I guess the reason I even brought that up was, he's a person who's been dealt a disadvantage right from the start. So anyway, but an incredibly positive person. So we're sitting around and we're yakking politics, and his dad, along with my mother, and they immigrated from Scotland way back when. That story I was telling you earlier.
Yes.
And Mike's dad, my uncle, who got me into DJ. He's the guy that got me into this. That's
the uncle.
Yeah, that's the uncle. He said to Mike, my Uncle John, he said, Mike, you always have to vote NDP because they stick up for the working man. And I thought, and my Uncle John was a tool and die maker, worked with my dad. My dad was a printer, so they were tradesmen. Yep. So I said to Mike, do you still do that? And yeah. Why? Because the NDP now is different from the NDP your dad voted for.
Oh, yeah.
And back in the day, the NDP were for the working man. They had the support of all the unions. Yep, but that's, in a lot of cases, left to the conservatives. And we have people who are in charge of big public sector unions showing up at Hamas parades and demonstrations. It's like, I'm sorry, am I paying union dues so you can talk about a problem that's a half a world away? Not that that's not a problem, but that's not what I'm paying dues for. So the NDP has abandoned that working man thing. It's not Ed Broadbent and Stephen Lewis in the tweed jacket with the patches on their sleeves.
Yeah.
It's a guy walking around, driving around in a Maserati SUV and sticking up for things that have nothing to do with politics or nothing to do with Canadians.
Canada.
Right. Yeah. So it's like so I left my cousin. He's like this. But we have to do that with every party. Is this the party? Because I've had many people come on and who were past MPs, politicians, whatever. This ain't the Liberal Party I work for. This ain't the and we got to remember that. And when we're shopping, we got to sometimes look beyond the brand and see if there perhaps isn't another item that's cheaper or better for us.
Oh my goodness, man.
And that's what it is. It's like those parties, traditional parties, aren't the same anymore. And we've seen that with simply the change in demographics of those voting for the Liberals. It used to be the young people that brought Trudeau in. Now it's the young people that got Trudeau out. And it's the old people that are keeping them in.
Yeah.
There's your 180. So it can change. So be open-minded and look for that. Look for what you need. Not just the clip of the day and getting another like, as you said, because that's what it is. How many hits did you get? How many,
It's so weird, Scott, because like you kind of go into this. I can remember like, oh, I'm not going to be that way. And you get that way. Like,
it's normal.
It's just like,
but that's no excuse for it. You've got to strive to do your homework.
Yes. And you got to continue to do that. For sure. Yeah.
Like the best thing we can do as older people is continue to learn. Every day you should learn. You should never be the same. You don't get stuck in one decade. You don't get stuck in 1 year. If you're lucky and you're 60, you feel the same way you did as you did when you were 16. I mean, it's just the world's your oyster. So look for it.
Don't you feel that way? Like when you go and say out loud how old you are and you go and like, this is not what I thought 63 was going to be. Like I'm kind of blown away. Like my head explodes literally like every morning, it seems. There's just so much to do. And it's
time flies. It flies by. We were just fortunate enough to celebrate our 25th wedding anniversary this past week. And I think we spent the whole weekend just saying to ourselves, where the hell did that go? Where did that go? It's to get caught up in this petty bullshit about, I don't like his socks, or I don't like this, or I don't. It's like we've lost our ethics, we've lost our moral compass, we've lost what we need to do to survive and help each other succeed. It's like the neighborly thing. If your neighbor needs help, go help them. You don't leave them stuck, because someday you might be stuck and you may need him. So
that's a pretty famous line. Love your neighbor.
Yeah, but we become very introverted and very selfish, very self-absorbed. It's about me.
I think technology has an enormous amount to help us towards that, right? Like it really does, right? I mean, like when we grew up, and again, we're sounding old here, but to say to somebody that you looked at yourself in the mirror, you would be embarrassed to tell anybody that. And now I can't believe how many times I'll be walking around a park and there's somebody up there looking at their phone, taking a picture of themselves. Right?
Yes.
Like, and it's
look
not
at me
like
next to a tree.
Look, there's a duck. There's a fountain.
Oh, it's look, I'm eating food. Here it is for you all to see. What is with like people feel the need to take pictures of their food? And I shouldn't make fun. I sound like an old fart. But
it's true.
Turn the camera around, and instead of taking a picture of the food, take a picture of you and your wife or your family or your kids or your pets, or then maybe you can have the food in the foreground or whatever, but take a picture of your omelet and send it to me. Come on.
Oh, doesn't this look good, Scott?
Yeah.
Well, and
that's what social media is. Nobody I shouldn't say, because it does happen the odd time, but nobody gets into terrible scenarios and takes pictures of themselves. It's usually, look at me on a vacation. Look at me with the top down. Look at me. Blah, 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 blah. and
It's
it's either
funny.
that or look at me, I'm about to have open heart surgery.
There you go. It's like we were talking about this with our kids this weekend. It was like about the photograph, and the photograph came along, right? And it's like one thing a photograph doesn't tell you when you're on a holiday. You look at, oh, look at that beautiful thing, the diarrhea, and the car that had a flat tire, and the car that wouldn't start,
Waiting in
and
line, and the
you
airport,
don't
the
get
flight
any of that.
delays.
You just get, oh wow, I wish I was them.
Yeah,
It's so
yeah,
interesting. We
exactly.
are. And what the funny part is, I think we all do it. Like
Yeah,
it's like
no, true
it
enough.
used to be the parents, like, oh, look at the kids at the table texting, and then you go, well, you've got a phone and you're texting now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
It's so fun.
yeah,
Anyway, I was gonna say this has been, I hope this is a great episode for others. It's been a great episode for me because I think you've given a real perspective on the political climate here in our country, and made us kind of, I think, smile at ourselves. Like it is like, this is an important election. Get out there and vote.
yeah,
It's for sure going to be better that you get out and vote than you not to this year. I think this time around, this is a big deal. And what you've shared, like I still can't believe 2 million people voted on the weekend. That just
yeah.
seems like
No,
a
no, on Friday, on the first day of voting, not
like
over the
that's
course of the
just
weekend, on the first day.
on one day. Like that just blows. That's like election day, Scott.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
like I'm kind of floored by that. I'm actually extremely hopeful too. But
But
I think
to me, as I said earlier, it also, to me, proves just the pent up anxiety, fear, and is okay, go. It's like vaccination. Go get it. Go, go. Everybody's just busting out of the barn door. And
yes.
I'm not sure they're busting out of the barn door so they can have more of what we've had for the last 10 years.
Well said. I think that's a great way to kind of wrap this up.
Perfect.
Anyway, with that, I thank you for listening today. I thank Scott for joining us as a guest on Better Than Not. And I hope you listen to this and maybe shift your perspective a little bit, or give you something to at least think about. And thanks a lot. Bye for now.
Thank you. Don't forget to vote.
Are we on? Good. Welcome to the Better Than Not podcast. Sometimes we get it right, sometimes we don't. But when we at least do something, we know it's almost always better than not.